welcome back to Place Navigators. My name's Joe Platts.
And I'm Chris Elder.
Hey, so Chris, it's episode 7. We are well on our way here. Tell us what we just covered in episode 6. Give us a quick recap of that.
So we did the 10 most common questions that we as real estate professionals are asked all the time. It's a really good episode. I feel like it's a really good episode. I hope you do too, Joe.
Yeah.
So you guys need to go check it out and take a look at it. But today's episode is going to be awesome.
Oh, man. So today, Chris, I think we need to dive into one of the things that I think is on the heart and mind of probably every person in the U.S. And that is, why are home prices so freaking high?
You know what, man? Before we go into this, I want to remind everybody that's on there, share, like, subscribe.
Yes, please.
Share, like, subscribe, and let's dive into it, man. What do you think it is, man, that creates home prices, that price being so high?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of things. So we do know that the number one threat to real estate, the number one threat to home ownership is this one adjective, and that is affordability. I think the first thing, Chris, we need to look at population. So for the markets we serve, the state of Washington, the state of Idaho, what has happened with population just in a short amount of time?
So I know with population in Washington state, it's 7.9 million for 2023. And that's from 2020, it was 7.7. And you know what? Out of 4 counties that surround Puget Sound, you got the majority of the people, 4.4 million in that Puget Sound area.
So half or better live on the same I-5 corridor across 4 counties for the entire state.
Exactly. And it's just right there in that condensed area.
Yeah. So these people, they took literally that Go West young man thing, they forgot about the east side of the state.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why we always say in Washington state, it's different from the Puget Sound area compared to every part of the state.
Right. You know, Idaho at one time was the 38th least populated state in the union. And Idaho's toppling about 2 million people. In 1990, there was 1 million people. So in 34 years, the population has doubled in one of the lesser populated states. And what's crazy about that is just between July of 22 and July of 23, 26,000 people moved to the state of Idaho. You know, I saw this thing the other day. I thought it was pretty funny. Yeah. It was talking about how a lot of the population in Idaho that's recently come in has come from California, Oregon, or Washington. And so there's some people, I don't know if I recommend this, but there's some people that are calling them the cows. California, Oregon, Washington, see what I mean? I thought that was pretty funny.
But, I see what they did.
Yeah. So in this threat to housing and affordability, we have this population growth in the places that we call home, the places that we service. What are some other things that are adding to this whole affordability complex issue?
Well, you also got to think about it like this. We've had the lowest unemployment in the most densely populated areas. So most metropolitan areas have less than 5% unemployed.
Unemployment.
Yeah, that's pretty. That's
under 5%.
That's pretty darn low.
It is low, especially if you compare other nations in the world, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things that I think is the most overlooked in affordability in the spans of my career, starting in 2003, is we had a pretty major housing event in 2008.
Yeah.
And one of the things that happened is construction stopped. It just stopped. I joke, find me a 2009, 10 vintage home. They should be collector's items because there's not that very many of them. No. We had a lot of homes that were mid-construction and they stopped and they got finished up over those cleanup years. But breaking ground on new builds during that time, super rare. So Chris, talk to us a little bit more about what construction halting at a time not that long ago did to add to this complex issue.
Well, with the housing stopping all of a sudden, what that created was, you got population still growing because we were still we were still reproducing.
We're procreating.
Yeah,
We're immigrating.
Yeah, or
We're doing a really good job of that right now.
I mean, hey, that's a whole entire different topic.
A whole other episode.
Yeah, that we could
Yeah.
totally talk about. And that's the thing, population grew, and when we're not building homes, it's just going to start like compounding there. And I know in 2019, they estimated that between 2008 and 2019, there was 3.8 million home shortages. Can you
Missing homes.
Missing homes. Like
so like what you're saying is if we took a trend line of inventory today and we took a trend line if we never had the housing crisis of 2008, the gap between those two is better than 3 million dwelling units.
We haven't seen a shortage of housing like that since the 1960s.
Wow.
And it's funny, it's a ripple effect. It really is. It's a ripple effect. So we're feeling that in prices right now.
Right.
And it's even worse. Today it's something more like 6.5 million.
Wow. So it's getting worse. It's not getting better.
Exactly. And you know what made it even worse?
What's that?
I mean, we love saying this word, the pandemic.
Oh, the pandemic. Right, because then we had supply issues, we had labor issues, then we had wage issues. We've had the increase in all costs across the board since then. And so what's interesting is we've also had an increase in cost of money. Right?
Yeah.
The interest rate, the pandemic was where we did all this stimulus. We spent like $1 trillion on the flu, and then all of a sudden mortgage rates went up.
Yeah.
Right. And so that passes through to the consumer. What else passes through to the consumer?
You got environmental regulations, cost of development. In the Puget Sound, there's a lot of finishing costs, that exceed 6 figures. And the problem is when there's these finishers costs, you got to think about permitting, you got to think about environmental studies, you got to think about all these different things.
Right.
It gets passed to you, me, the consumer.
Right. So if I have like a piece of land that I wanted to subdivide or short plat or something like that, and I thought, man, like out of this 1 acre, I could get 5 1/20th lots or 1/5 lots, right? I get 5 lots out of that. That those lots, each one of those, you're saying could have up to 6 figures of finishing costs before I can build a house on that?
It can. It depends on where you're building.
Right.
So that's
not so much Idaho, but definitely Puget Sound.
I would say Puget Sound, you're going to have a higher cost to build.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So now, like when they pass all these rules and environmental protections and greater good kind of things, like the noise that we hear is like we're kind of sticking it to the developer and the builder and all that kind of stuff. Does it really set them back?
I mean, these guys, I'm not going to name any of the big name people out there that are doing developments, but they're doing a lot better than the average person that wants to try to break into it.
So who's paying for
it? The buyer.
Yeah,
that's
you and
it gets rolled into the
our
cost.
Family, our friend. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, see, that's what's interesting, right? Like, not that we don't believe that we don't need to preserve things and be good stewards and all that, but one of the things that I think gets lost in the noise and the news is that every time we add something to this mix, it's a pass-through cost. It goes directly to the consumer. So the consumer says, gosh, housing's super expensive. The developer says, well, this is what it costs me to get to the dirt. The builder says, this is what it costs me to get to the house, right? And all that trickles down to the individual, not necessarily to the big evil developers and corporations and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So Chris, what about property tax and gosh, insurance has become like a big topic with everything that's happened in California, and then that whole thing in Maui, and even like our utility costs. Like we build all these houses, and so we've had to build in infrastructure and sewage treatment plants, and like what about those kinds of things?
So here's the thing: property taxes have risen, obviously, because the assessors know that the values of homes have gotten up. So they look at the property, and then they look at the improvements on the property. And the improvements on the property, that's your actual structure of your house. So the value of real estate has gone up because of some of the reasons what we just talked about. Environmental, it could be a whole bunch of different things. So you're paying a higher insurance, and you're paying a higher tax assessment rate because of all that. And I just said insurance.
Right.
My goodness, there's been so many claims in the last few years due to the pandemic induced, a favorite word of everyone right now.
Yeah.
And
we blame COVID for everything.
I mean, we can, but there is a fiscal reality that we are all feeling right now in our pocketbooks, and that's going to have a ripple effect beyond what we even really realize, and we'll be talking about it in 20 years when we're
still going to be talking about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just like a 2008 house
yeah, we're still talking about that.
Exactly.
Wow.
So, and it's going to be just more ripple effects, and the natural disasters. It's insane, and we as humans want to do right by the earth, right? So we create these electric vehicles that we plug into our house, that plugs into our electric grid.
Yep.
So that means that your utilities and the cost of all of that's also going up as well. I mean,
we need more power, but we don't want to.
Exactly.
We don't want to do some of the things that create power.
Hey, we're trying to figure it out, and we got to give ourselves a little bit of credit because we're in the kind of development phase. But you're going to notice that EVs are creating some serious problems.
Yeah.
And we're going to be. I mean, man, that could be its own conversation.
That could be its own conversation. So to recap that, as demand increases, land value inherently goes up. That causes an increase to the assessment. Construction cost goes up. That makes the structures more valuable, right? We're seeing the risk assessment from the insurance companies are changing. It turns out they're a for-profit, not a not-for-profit thing. So when their claims go up, they start raising their rates. I mean, I just got a text message walking into the studio to record this from a guy that was complaining online about his insurance, and I shot him a quick message, and I was like, hey man, I don't know if it'll help you, but here's a good resource I have. And he just texted me and said, hey, I got a better rate, I got a better coverage, and so we're having to be more diligent with things like our insurance policies. We're seeing those utility cost changes. We're seeing changes in the utilities, right? Like City of Seattle's wanting to go away from natural gas and go all electric, and we're increasing the demand on the electrical grid all at the same time.
That's going to have a huge cost effect to anybody that's buying in places that are changing how they traditionally do things. And whether you want it or not, it's going to create a cost effect for you.
Yeah.
Regardless of which side you're on that, it's going to create a cost.
Right. It comes at a cost. That is a very fair statement, right? So then if we move beyond property tax and costs, right? Like just kind of recap, like we're building this thing up, right? We're saying there's a growing population. We're saying there's low unemployment. So, people have money. When they have money, other people are looking to, capitalize on that. We've got this inventory problem that we've been dealing with since 2008. We've got more environmental regulations. We've got more costs. And then in addition to the costs that we're talking about, both property tax, insurance, and utilities, what was another pandemic-related increase that we ran into?
Has anybody gone to Home Depot in the last couple of years?
Yeah.
Because a 2x4 is no longer $1.
Right.
It's not. I mean, you could have gotten a treated one for $1.75, $2.45 before the pandemic, and now it's like $9 for a 2x4.
For a pressure treated 2x4.
For a pressure treated 2x4, and that's
wow. So we're talking like a 4-time increase.
It's massive.
4x.
Now, from what I hear, the building materials are starting to decline in cost, but you got to realize if a 2x4 costs $10, that's a massive cost per square footage to build.
Right.
And these people that are hearing all these new laws of detached dwelling units, or they could have a new accessory dwelling unit, like let's say in their basement or in their attic or something like that. And everybody goes to the store to try to buy materials. What do you think is going to happen with materials?
Yeah. Well, and I think too, we've had a trend in the US where we've gone a little bit more from the blue collar to the white collar in our labor force, right? So,
Mm.
so our tradesmen, they're having their own supply and demand issue and able to demand higher labor rates. And when the plumbing company's got to pay more for the plumber, does the plumbing company take less profit or does the consumer pay?
Oh, it's definitely on the consumer side.
Pays it, right? So all these things are a trickle down effect. Now we don't want to just talk about the bad. We want to talk about the good, but there's a two-edged sword, and I think it's kind of where we wrap up some of these complicated layers of this conversation as to why housing is so expensive. But number one thing we've dealt with over the last couple of years in our economic environment is what adjective? Survey says.
Let's see, inflation.
Inflation, right? So the bad news is that the buying power of our dollar went down.
Oh yeah.
But here's the good news: people that own real estate, their only true, unequivocal hedge against that is that the value of their home went up, right? And so unfortunately for our friends that were either too young or too early in their career, or not prepared, or just didn't know, that didn't have some investment in real estate prior to this last major increase in inflation, they really missed out in that decrease in the value of their currency, didn't have a counterbalance. And when you look up, you guys can Google it yourselves. When you Google like what the average equity of a home in America is, it's historically high. Now, is it because everybody was a genius? No, it's because of the devaluation of currency.
I feel like a genius.
Well, you know, you're like a hardcore Mac guy, so you could work at the Genius Bar or something. I'm just a real estate guy. That's all I am. Right?
Oh my goodness. Man,
okay, so let's wrap this up like simply. Like why do we think that like houses are not going to massively drop? Why do we think we're not in a housing bubble? Why do we think that, you know, we're not going to see like a fire sale? Why do we see a low amount of foreclosures? Like put a bow on why this all seems to be opposite of what people keep trying to predict.
Let's look at it like this, and this is an easy hit it out of the home run. When you have a high demand, your value is also going to be high.
Right.
So unless we start magically just popping out 6.5 million homes, I mean, you sprinkle a little fairy dust everywhere and all these homes just come up, it mathematically makes sense to own homes right now. It really does. Even right now, though prices are high, they're going to be considered low in 5 years.
Isn't that the truth? Guys, if you only heard one thing that we said, like in the entire Place Navigator podcast series, you will notice 5 years from now that you wish you would have bought more real estate. I bet my last dollar on that statement. I bet everything I had on that. You will regret what you didn't buy more than you will regret what you do buy.
Yeah, and with that right there, we always say this over and over again. The number one way to become a millionaire is
it's owning real estate.
Owning real estate.
Number one way in the United States of America to build wealth is absolutely owning real estate. 90% of first generation millionaires have real estate in their portfolio. And so here's where our hearts are at. Whether you're an industry professional or you're a homeowner already, or you're a homeowner that wants to become an investor, or you're a first-time buyer, or you're somebody that's just a little scared and confused about it all, like regardless of where you're at, the number one thing that we want to encourage you to do is to reach out to us. We're education-based. We're not going to try to sell you anything. The homes that you're going to call about to Dr. Chris and I are not homes that we have on the market personally.
Yeah.
Right? My stuff's not for sale. Is your stuff for sale?
No. We'll see.
Maybe.
Call me up.
Yeah. But the point is, you guys, here's the point. The point is that it doesn't matter to us which one you buy. It doesn't matter to us how much you pay. Those kinds of things don't matter. What matters is that we build you the foundation of creating more certainty, more wealth, protection for your family, predictability, and a way to make it a little bit easier to go to the grocery store when every time you walk in, it's a freaking $100.
Think about it like this. Why not create that generational change for you and your family?
Yeah, I know that I greatly enjoy the fact that my housing costs are fixed.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't pay rent.
Yeah, that's true. Hey, if you want to know more about that, that's in an earlier episode as to why Chris doesn't pay anything to live in his house. And you guys need to check that out. So it's time to land the plane, Chris. We're really grateful that you tune in. Chris, remind everybody what we really need them to do the most.
Hey, we need everybody to like, subscribe, and share it with everybody that's out there. We appreciate everybody that's been out there. Hit us up in the comment section. Let us know what you think. Let us know what's on your mind regarding real estate. And thank you for listening to Place Navigators.
Absolutely.